Calev Myers is founder of the Jerusalem Institute for Justice. That's a human rights group.
Calev Myers is a thought leader and a social entrepreneur in Israeli society. His legal team of 20 lawyers, interns, and paralegals at the Yehuda Raveh and Company law offices has initiated and overseen investments exceeding hundreds of millions of dollars into the social and commercial fabric of Israeli society. The Jerusalem Institute of Justice, which Calev founded in 2004, has successfully protected the civil and human rights of thousands of Israelis and Palestinians, with over 22 Supreme Court victories, numerous appearances before the UN, the European Parliament, and many national governments, as well as international media outlets.
We expect a certain standard of human rights from Western nations, which would include Israel, by the way, that is not expected from the Arab nations throughout the Middle East. The welfare of the people is not at the top of their list of priorities.
The Hamas organization is the worst thing that ever happened to Palestinians in Gaza.
Power is more important, money is more important, land may be more important. If you put land above people, you usually get a graveyard.
Calev is frequently invited to debate government policies on current event talk shows.
We're not going to allow these types of discrimination against women in our Western societies. We have to draw the red line.
And was recently named a top influencer for 2015 by the Shirat Hadin Israel Law Center. Calev attributes his various achievements to the practical wisdom that he has gleaned from over 25 years of seriously studying the Hebrew scriptures on a daily basis.
Thank you. It's good to be with you today. There's been some great talks. It's been a great conference, hasn't it? So I was asked to speak about, to share some Jewish wisdom for success in business. And the first question we should ask is, why should we be interested in what Jewish people know about doing business? It's a good question, right? So you should know that Jewish people in this country make up 2% of the American population, which means that there should only be 8 Jews on the Forbes 400 list, the list of the 400 most wealthy people in the United States. But year after year, there's been between 60 to 100 Jews on that list over the last decade. So the question is, how is it that this small, very small minority, this group of people, has a wealth that's 10 times as large as their representative numbers in the population? Some people have conjectured that perhaps there's a wealth gene. In other words, maybe it's because the Jews have been so persecuted throughout the centuries that they've had to develop in this evolutionary process the ability to make wealth in order to protect themselves. Unfortunately, science hasn't proven yet that there's a wealth gene. That's probably not it. Other people think the Jews cheat. When I was growing up, and some of you have probably actually heard this or used this term, but it was, "Are you Jewing me?" Right? Well, Jews aren't relatively wealthy because we cheat. The thing about cheating is it always catches up with you. So business is based on reputation, business is based on honesty, business is based on relationships. Cheating is a way to get forward in the sort of short run. But if you want to grow and become a wealthy person in general, that's not going to get you ahead. There are other people who conjecture that Jews control most of the banks throughout the world, so we're this sort of secret society that helps each other and so on and so forth, and that we're always helping each other move forward. I used to think that. So one time I was visiting New York City. I came in from Israel, I was visiting New York City about 10 or 15 years ago, and I wanted to buy a leather jacket. So I went into this store, and I heard somebody speaking Hebrew, the shop owner. I said, "Do you know any stores that are maybe run by Israelis, one of us, a Jew somewhere around here?" And he said, "Yeah, right around the corner, next to this or that or the other store, there's a guy who sells leather jackets, and he's an Israeli." I was speaking to him in Hebrew. And he said, "Just tell him Avi sent you, and everything will be okay." So I made my way over to this store, and I said, "Hey, I said to him in Hebrew, I understand you're an Israeli. Avi sent me. He said, you give me a really good price on a leather jacket." He said, "You can go tell Avi to screw himself." So that's pardon my French, but it's not that Jews are helping each other out all the time, right? And that's not why we've been so successful in business. And then the last thought has been, well, maybe it's because Jewish people have such high IQs. But that also couldn't really be the case because most people who are successful in business, don't have an extremely low IQ, but maybe not also the Albert Einsteins of the world. The people with the really high IQs are usually professors or, scientists, researchers or something like that. And most of the people who really excel in business are somewhere in this, average and intelligent people. So I think that the reason that Jews have been so successful in business is that we have been implementing principles from the Torah and interpretations of the Torah for about 2,000 years. And these are principles that are open for all of us who love the Bible and want to be taught by the Bible. And I'm going to go through some of those principles today. I'm going to mention 7 of these principles. Any one of you in this room who puts these principles into practice in your life, I guarantee that you'll expand your wealth potential. And so it doesn't matter if you own a business, if you work in a business, if you work in the church, it doesn't matter. Put these principles into your life and you'll expand your wealth potential. I also want to say that I haven't written anything on this subject yet, but I thought, some of the things I'm going to be sharing today come from teachings of Rabbi Daniel Lapin. I don't know if any of you have heard of him. And so I asked for him, he's a great speaker. I've asked for him to actually send a set of his books. So there's a set on the table in the back called the Income Abundance Package. And you can basically purchase 2 of his books and some CDs. It's great information. And he told me today, he said, tell the audience, if everyone wants a signed book, they can send to my address with an envelope with a return address on it, and I will write a dedication on like a sticker or something and send it back to them. They can put in the. So if you want a signed book from Daniel Lapin, sometimes Jews do help each other, right? I mean, anyway, it's great material. But the reason that putting biblical principles into practice and making money is going to work is because money is a spiritual thing. Did you know that? In fact, if you don't have a spirit, you can't really use money. What would happen if we just took, some $100 bills and gave it to a group of apes? What do you think they'd do with it? They might tear it up, they might eat it, they might do a lot of things with it, but they probably wouldn't be able to have transactions in exchange for value, etc. So only beings with spirits can use money. Secondly, money is completely based on faith. The value of the actual piece of paper that money is printed on is negligible. And when any population or the market comes to the conclusion that a certain currency is not worth anything, it's not worth anything. And we can remember situations in post-World War II, Germany, etc., where the faith of the people and the money disappeared, it had no value. So because money is a spiritual thing, it's subject to spiritual laws. And I'm going to give you sort of 7 spiritual laws today that we can apply to money, which will help you make more of it. Law number 1 is this, okay? Gold is good. Okay, this is something Jews have known for centuries. Okay? Money is a good thing. And let me tell you this, if you're not convinced in the depths of your kishkis, which we say is a Yiddish word for something really deep inside of you, if you're not convinced that money is a good thing, you're going to be really poor at making more of it. It's absolutely true. And I know that some of you are almost embarrassed about your desire to make money. And so when somebody asks you what you do, you say, I'm in marketplace ministry. You're in business. You want to make money. Don't be embarrassed of it. Don't hide behind the term marketplace ministry because you think it might be more spiritual, because making money is something that I should really be embarrassed of. It's not. Making money is good. Money is good. Society constantly sort of gives us these messages, and a lot of Christianity, that money is somehow dirty or evil. Can you think of the last movie that you watched that the hero of the movie was a business executive? Think of one movie, right? We all think that guy's greedy, he's cutthroat, he's out to take away people's jobs to make life more difficult for people. These are messages that are constantly being broadcast through society, but they don't come from God. Money is actually very good. But don't just believe me, believe God. During the story of Genesis, God says 7 times, it is good. And the 8th time he says it is good, do you know what he was referring to? He's referring to gold. You can go look at that. It says in Genesis 2:12, speaking of the Garden of Eden, the gold of that land is good. Now, how could God say gold is good? Wasn't he aware that gold would be used eventually to make money? And that because of greed for money, humans would eventually lie and cheat and steal and enslave and kill? But maybe, just maybe, the problem wasn't really with the gold, but it was with the hearts of the humans that were using the gold. Let's not confuse cause and effect. You know, God was very aware, I believe, that one day gold would be used to print coins, and that coins would be used to make life easier for billions and billions of human beings. What would life still be like with a barter system? I mean, how would I even value my hour as a lawyer in chickens? And even if I could value my hour with chickens, where would I put 1 million chickens? And maybe 10 million. God knew that gold would become money, and he still said that it was good. Okay, but didn't Jesus condemn money? I mean, from what we learn, what we understand, Jesus said that it's more difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than a camel through the eye of the needle. Now, everybody's going to say, all right, I heard the explanation for that. Okay, there's a gate. There's a gate that people could walk through. And then there's a little door within the gate that was called the eye of the needle. And so, have you ever heard this? Anyone ever heard this? Okay. And so for the camel, let's make a camel. It's very bad. For a camel to get through the gate, it had to get down on its knees, which means for a wealthy person to get into heaven, they need to be humble. Has anyone ever heard that? I hate to tell you that to you, but it's a complete urban myth. It has absolutely no ground whatsoever in archaeology, and nobody knows where that story came from. So what was Jesus trying to say? It's more difficult for a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of heaven than a camel through the eye of the needle. Well, I read in my daily readings of the New Testament, I don't read the Greek interpretation, I read the Aramaic interpretation. What's the Aramaic interpretation? It's the Bible that's been used by the Eastern Syriac churches for several millennia. And so the Catholic Roman Church used the Greek interpretation, and the Eastern churches would use the Aramaic interpretation. And we knew that Jesus actually spoke Aramaic. It was like the English, the international language of his time. And so if you go to the Aramaic translation, the word gamelah in Aramaic, which was translated into Greek as camel, is the word for rope in Aramaic. So what Jesus actually said, it's more difficult for a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of heaven than to put a rope through the eye of the needle. Why is that encouraging? Because it's possible to put a rope through the eye of the needle. All you have to do is unravel it a little bit. So what he was saying was, it was actually in the context of a very wealthy man who wasn't willing to give away his riches. And so Jesus was actually saying, if you can be a little bit less stingy and be willing to unravel your riches a little bit and share with the people around you, then there's no problem getting into the kingdom of heaven. And so that's what I actually believe Yeshua was saying. He wasn't saying that money is bad. And the other reason, thank you, yeah, we can clap for that. The other reason that God knows that gold is good is because gold is you. And what do I mean by that? Gold is simply an expression, a culmination of your hard work, of the value that you've brought to humanity, to mankind. It's you. And so when you put gold on the poker table, you're putting your heart on the poker table. When you put your gold in the church's offering basket, you're putting your heart in that church's offering basket, into the church. If you're raising investments for your startup venture, you're asking other people to take a part of their heart, a part of their lives, a part of their livelihood and what they've built and the value that they've produced for other people, and to entrust it into your care. Jesus put it like this in Matthew 6:21, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So the first principle is gold is good, and it's really a representation of who you are. The second principle is gold equals service. Okay, what do I mean by that? Does anyone here have cash in your pocket or in your wallet? So if you have cash in your wallet, why don't you take it out like me, okay? cash. You can hold it up in the air. Go ahead. Anyone who has any $1, $2, $50, whatever, dollar bill, just hold it up. Okay? That's good. We got it in the air now? So look around the room. You can be sure that anyone that is holding cash in their hand has done a service for somebody, has created value for somebody. Unless you stole it or somehow cheated, you were doing something that created value for another human being. And you know what? I'm not advocating here for poker, but let's say you won in a poker game. You were creating enjoyment or amusement for another human being. That's value. And that's the reason you walked away with this cash. You may have served your boss. You may have served your clients. You may have served your congregation. You may have served your community. This is a certificate of appreciation for your service. So now we're going to look around the room and clap for everybody that held some money up. Because all it is proof that you successfully served somebody, met a need, or brought value to their life. The reason that God put a healthy desire in your heart to make more money is because He wants you to serve people. He wants you to go home and work hard and thinking about how you can solve problems and bring value to other people's lives, because He wants connectivity between people. He wants us to serve one another. He wants us to love one another. Service is an expression of love. That's why God wants you to have that desire to make more money, so you can come up with more creative ideas. I think that's really the whole essence of entrepreneurship. Because of that, it's perfectly okay to ask God for more money. When you pray that God gives you more money, what you're actually praying is, God, give me more opportunity to serve other people, to solve problems, to bring value to the lives of other people. So gold equals service. Because gold equals service, we're moving on to point 3, more service equals more gold. Okay? More service equals more gold. I'm going to ask you a very, might sound like a heretical question. Who do you think served more people, Bill Gates or Mother Teresa? Now, I'm sure that the people in Calcutta really needed the service of Mother Teresa, and she was a great blessing to them. But the reason that Bill made billions is because he helped billions. And by the way, I'm not making a judgment about his motives or Mother Teresa's motives. Maybe she was the most holy person that never had an evil thought cross through her mind, and everything she did was from pure intention, and she should be honored for that. But I'm just asking a very simple question. I can't judge people's hearts. God can judge people's hearts. Which of them served more people? Well, obviously Bill Gates, because he's created these solutions that have made life easier for billions of human beings across planet Earth. So the more people you can serve, and if you apply that into your life, if you find more areas of service, you're automatically going to expand your wealth potential of your life. If you're a young person and you're trying to decide what career to launch out into, and many people say, what you really need to do is dig into yourself and see what that passion is that you've always had in your heart, that thing that you wanted to build or you wanted to grow or you wanted to do. I have a different idea for you. Go out into your community and see what need the public has that you could reach and fulfill. That's really the way you're going to become wealthy. Now, thank you. When those two things intersect, you become a very happy entrepreneur. If you can find something that people really need, but that you also enjoy doing, that's going to be wonderful. But if you really want to be a successful business person, a wealthy person, find what people need and find a way to provide that service. And at the end of the day, human beings are created in such a way that we feel better when we serve other people. So the whole idea of just finding what I really like to do so I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life, it doesn't always work. At the end of the day, if you're just serving yourself, you're going to be a very unhappy person. God's put a desire in us, and nothing makes us feel better when we're bringing value and life and service to other human beings. So asking what other people need is your first step to making more money. Yeshua, Jesus, we call him Yeshua, that's his Hebrew name, said this. You remember when he was on the road to Capernaum, and they were discussing, his disciples were discussing who's going to be the greatest. And when they got to Capernaum, he turned around and said, "What were you talking about?" And they were very embarrassed. Nobody wanted to, they just sort of looked at each other and like, uh-oh. And he knew exactly what they were talking about. So he said, "Whoever wants to be greatest in the kingdom of heaven will become the servant of all." And you say to yourself, well, I always thought that, I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur, and I'm going to create a pyramid, and I'm going to be the CEO at the top, and I'm going to have secretaries and other managers and the CFO and the CTO reporting to me, and they're going to have people reporting to them, and they're all going to be serving my vision. And that's how I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur. Well, Jesus kind of turned all that around, and he created an upside-down triangle. And what he said was, first, you're going to serve your wife, and then you're going to serve your family, and then you're going to serve your community, and then you're going to serve your boss, and then you're going to serve your city, and so on and so forth. And the person who has this higher sort of weight or burden of service on their shoulders, who's solving more problems for more people, is really going to be the greatest among you. And do you want to know how I know that principle works? Look at the bank account of Bill Gates, right? And so more service equals more gold. Point number 4. This is pretty simple stuff, but it's stuff that Jewish people have known for years. I'm just... Okay. And I know I'll probably get in trouble for sharing this with all the goyim, and now we're gonna have more competition out there and everything. But okay, more friends equals more gold, because service is your key to becoming wealthy. The more people you can find to serve, the more wealthy you can become. So it's very, very, very important for you to start enlarging your circle of friends. Remember that the goal of God behind giving us a desire to make money is to create more connectivity between people. Enlarge your circle of friends. Find opportunities to make more friends. If you don't belong to a community, join a community. If you don't belong to a church, join a church. The Jewish people around the world, wherever you're traveling, whatever you're doing, there's a tradition to find what we call minyan, which is to find 10 Jewish people within that city and to pray with them a couple of times a day. And so Jewish people get together and you end up making friends. And so you should constantly be attending events that are filled with potential clients, potential investors, potential people from your community. You should belong to a community. You should try to enlarge your circle of friends. I want everyone to go home and do this test. Okay? Really simple test. Write down on a piece of paper all of the names that you can think of people who would take your first phone call that are not your family members and you don't owe them money. Don't worry, it won't be such a long process for most of you. And then your question should be, well, how can I grow that list? How there'll be more people that when they recognize my phone number are going to answer right away? And if you could grow that list, you can grow your wealth potential immensely. My wife and I just made our first angel investment in a startup company. We actually invested a six-figure amount in a technology startup company. Do you know why I invested in that company and did not invest in yours? Because I know the entrepreneur. Because he's a friend of mine. Because we've met in many social circumstances. Because we volunteered for the same organizations. Because I share life with him. Because I trust him. Because he's my friend. Your job today is to go make more friends. But I'm introverted. But I'm shy. I'm actually an introvert. Which basically means I get my batteries recharged by being alone. Not by continuing to be with more people. So I'm an introvert, but look what I'm doing right now, right here. And so people are born shy. You're born shy, but being alone is always a decision. And it's something you can change. When there's something that, if I know that to be a better, more successful business person, I need to come out of myself and make more friends, and that's something that we need to work on, right? In order to enlarge our potential for wealth. Jews not only meet together regularly, but we also make it very clear what type of service we're providing, right? And so be proud of what you do and talk about it all the time. Be proud of find joy in what you're doing and find joy in talking about it. Why do you think so many Jewish names are actually connected to professions? You ever thought about that? Abraham Schumacher used to make shoes. Isaac Diamond sold jewelry. Jacob Glazer worked with glass. Joseph Weinberg sold wine. Moses Wasserman sold water. Caleb Myers was a public speaker because he could always talk my ears off. Anyway, I'm just kidding. So everyone really connected with their profession and talked about it all the time. You should be making more friends and make it very clear what you do. Tell a story of what you did at the law firm this week as an example of, what you're going through. Connect in ways that people always have in front of them. Oh, this is the entrepreneur with the great idea. And so when they have some available cash and they're looking for something to do with it, they know you're there. Make yourself known. Make what you do known. Make more friends and regularly talk about what you do. Principle number 5. Okay, and this one might seem counterintuitive to some people. More generosity. I don't even know if I spelled that right. Generosity equals more gold. Again, if you don't understand that gold is a spiritual thing subject to spiritual laws, this is going to be a really weird one for you. And it's not going to make a lot of sense. But I'm telling you, if you want to make more money, give 10% of it away on a regular basis. Thank you. In Israel, we have 2 bodies of water. And I know some of you are starting to visit Israel and learn the topography. And God really speaks through the very geography and topography of Israel. So we have these huge major bodies of water. One is called the Sea of Galilee, where many of the stories of the New Testament took place. And the other one is called the Dead Sea. Why is it called the Dead Sea? Because there's nothing that lives there. It's only minerals. There are no fish. There's no life. There's no plant life. There's nothing. Absolutely dead and barren. Scientists have been trying to prove for a long time, just like there's like aliens and stuff like that in outer space, they've been looking for life at the Dead Sea and have failed terribly. Okay? Why is the Sea of Galilee, and the Sea of Galilee is the opposite, by the way. It's a major kind of body of water that brings life. It's filled with fish, so we eat the fish from the Sea of Galilee. We drink the water from the Sea of Galilee. For many years, until Israel started desalinating, it was the primary source of fresh water throughout Israel. So one body of water is bringing forth life, and the other body of water is dead. What's the difference between these 2 bodies of water? The Sea of Galilee has water coming in and water going out. The Dead Sea, being at the lowest topographical place on planet Earth, has water coming in, but no water going out. If you only have money coming into your life but not going out, you're eventually going to dry up, wither. Your spiritual life's going to die. Your business life's going to die. It's a spiritual principle that you have to be a generous person. And whether or not you believe in the spiritual law of tithing, giving money away makes you known as a generous person. And you know what? If I'm looking for a plumber, an electrician, a mechanic to fix my car, I'm always going to prefer a generous person. Because you're going to come to a point of time where what you expected, what you're paying for, is a little bit more than what that person expected to provide. And when you come to that juncture, you want that person to say, you know what? No problem, I'll throw it into the deal. But if you're known as a generous person, if you're known as somebody that freely shares your resources and that you're not stingy, you're going to make more friends, have more service of opportunity, become a more wealthy person. More generosity equals more gold. For those of you who are raising investments for high-tech startup companies, or maybe donations for your nonprofit entrepreneurship, the worst way to raise funds is to appear desperate. Nobody wants to give money to a desperate person. And whenever I get a newsletter from a nonprofit organization that says, SOS, give us money or we're going under, we're going to have to shut the doors and the party's over, I immediately delete that email. It goes right into my trash box, and I unsubscribe from their list. Because I don't want to give, if somebody's desperate, that means that they were probably poorly managed. Because how could they get to this point where, there are no reserves and everything's, and going bust? But you know what? Sometimes in business life, we reach places of desperation. Don't appear to be desperate. One of the ways that you appear not to be desperate is by offering to pay for dinner for that potential investor, or finding ways to be the one who gives. And when the waiter comes after dinner, at least 20%, right? Yes. Believers and believing entrepreneurs should be the biggest, highest tippers in restaurants. Because somebody else is working for you. Somebody else is providing service for you. Somebody else is probably a student, and this is their night job. And so they're funding their education, other things, and they're working hard to provide a service for you. And we should be people who appreciate service and know how to pay for good service. So giving money away helps us focus on other people rather than ourselves. And the flow of money creates bonds with other people, encircling our circle, enlarging our circle of friends, and enlarging our earning potential. So more generosity is going to equal more gold. Principle number 6. Okay? More education equals more gold. And I know there are exceptions to this rule out there. I know there are people that make billions of dollars that, never really got a formal education. And sometimes entrepreneurs, you're a really gifted person. You want to prove that you can do that as well. Because, you think out of the box. Entrepreneurs always think out of the box, and so on and so forth. And that's fine, but I'm just telling you, if you get more of an education, you immediately increase your wealth earning potential. There's something in Jewish culture that we cherish books. I've never been in a Jewish home that doesn't have like a really nice big library of books in their living room. Every home that I remember my grandmother's house, my parents' house, everywhere I lived, we always had this library of books. And my wife and I built a home just in the last year, and I remember thinking when we were sitting down with the architect and saying, we have to have those bookshelves in our living room. Like, for me, it wouldn't even be a home without books. We find books comforting. It's sort of part of the Jewish culture. And Israel, for that reason, publishes more books per capita than any other country on the face of the earth by a very large margin. Jewish people read books. Muslim people refer to us, and other groups refer to us as the people of the book. And one of the reasons is that we were the ones, that it was through us that God brought the Torah and the Bible to the world. But another reason that we're called people of the book is because the Jewish people have had zero illiteracy for the last 2,500 years. If you don't read books, read books. I'm just telling you, again, very simple principles, but these are some of the reasons that Jewish people have been successful financially, because we study things. Do you want to be a better negotiator, a better fundraiser, a better manager, a better scientist, a better artist? The way that you can learn to do that is the same exact way that people learn to make omelets or to trim rose bushes. Recently, I decided to take up a new sport. I started getting into swimming. And I thought to myself, you know what? I want to do this right. So I downloaded videos and I downloaded electronic books, and I studied for about 2 or 3 months on proper swimming technique. And then I took a coach once a week that would help me apply this knowledge that I learned. And so I studied something. I started applying it until it became muscle memory or habit. And now I think I'm a freaking good swimmer, but don't take my word for it, sometimes. But if you want to be an expert at something, do it 1,000 times. But make sure you're doing it right. The thing about any sport is if you do it too many times and you're doing it wrong, it's all going to backfire on you. Study, read, learn. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Learn it into fine detail. People aren't born as good negotiators. People aren't born as good salesmen. People aren't born as good entrepreneurs. You study, you look at other people who have done it successfully, you try to learn from what they do. And you know what? None of us have any excuses because we're living in the information age where information is right at our fingertips. And there's nothing that you cannot learn if you decide to learn it. So more education is going to bring more gold. Some of you have done trips in Israel with my father-in-law, Aryeh Bar-David, he's like a legendary tour guide. I think he's taking another group here in December. Yeah. So we look forward to seeing you in Israel. But Aryeh conducted an orchestra when he was my age. And then he went into a career of managing a carpentry. Actually, conducted a little bit younger than me. And he managed and worked as a carpenter for 20 or 30 years. And at the age of 60, he retired from that and went and studied and got a tour guiding license. And he's one of the best tour guides in Israel today. In fact, he books 3 years in advance. He's making 6 figures driving around a little minibus that can seat 19 people because he's such a brilliant tour guide. Part of that is he went and studied. At the age of 60, he got his license. And he put into practice teaching stuff that he'd been studying since he was a very young child, reading the Word of God, learning the land of Israel. He's a student of life. He challenges me because I know that my father-in-law stays up till 2 or 3 almost every night, studying huge books, marking them, rereading them, learning them. You will never meet a more knowledgeable person in your life. How do you think that happened? Through osmosis? He educated himself. And so more education is going to lead to more gold, and it's never too late to start, which brings me to my last point, which I know was mentioned by John Maxwell in his session, but it's this: never consider retiring. This is something that's just been in the Jewish culture for many years. Do you know that the word retire does not exist in Hebrew? And so rabbis say that if something doesn't exist in Hebrew, that means it's a concept whose original source is not God. Okay? So what's the idea behind retiring? What's the goal? It says something like this: I've been productive and created value for human beings for long enough. Now it's my time to take a break. And so now I'm going to serve myself and enjoy life. That is the most extremely selfish and unspiritual thought that I've ever heard. Yeah. And it's also not going to make you wealthy. Does anyone in here play golf? Okay. What happens if the ball is right here, okay, and I have a golf club, and I'm going to swing it, but I'm planning on stopping it right when it hits the ball, okay? That ball's going to bounce a few inches and just die. How do you hit the ball long and hard enough? You have to swing through till the club is all the way out here. Swing through life. It doesn't matter if we're talking about golf clubs or boxing. You know, if I want to hit somebody in the face, I'm just thinking about stopping when I hit their face. Oops. Then nothing's going to really happen. If I follow through, then it's going to hurt, right? And so if you're planning on stopping right here at the age of 65 or 70 or 75 or whatever it'll be, you're going to start slowing down as you're reaching that place, and you're going to stop making money somewhere around here. And by the time you reach that age, you're going to be much less wealthy than if you're planning on swinging all the way through life. But not only are you going to be less wealthy, but you're also going to be less happy. A lot of people that go into retirement actually go into depression because they sit on their porch and say, what am I doing that's good for mankind? They have no reason to get up in the morning and to get out of bed and to go and provide a service or, be productive for the rest of humanity. So maybe you have enough money that you don't need to work in order to make more of it. Go volunteer somewhere. Teach elderly, illiterate people to read. Volunteer for your church. Get into a program that you're creating service, doing something productive. You're committed to a certain purpose. You have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. This will keep you happy, healthy, and satisfied. And those are really the true riches in life. Thank you very much.